There are only 4 ways to grow your sales in your product business, and yet most business owners only focus on one way. In today's episode, we're going to dive into the 4 different ways to grow sales, why they're important and why not every sale is the same, and what you need to focus on to grow your business profitably and sustainably. Welcome to the Resilient Retail Game Plan. I'm Catherine Eardley, and in the next few minutes, you're about to get powerful real-world retail strategies from insights shared both from my guests and myself, backed up by my 25 years in the retail industry. Keep listening to learn how to grow a thriving, profitable product business. Let's jump in with this latest episode. Now, if you've heard me on the podcast before, then you'll know that I'm a big believer that sales are not the only component for success in growing a profitable product business. In fact, if you haven't already subscribed or followed the podcast, then please go do that immediately. And you can make sure you catch every single one of our episodes. So for example, episode 259, I talked about profit margins, and episode 262, I talk about cash flow. Your sales are not the only recipe for success in your product business. In fact, focus on sales and focusing on the top line and not the bottom line is going to get you in all kinds of trouble. But in today's episode, I did want to talk about sales because ultimately, yes, they are the lifeblood of a business. But not all sales are created equal. In fact, I would go as far as saying that you're not in the business of getting sales in your business. You're in the business of growing relationships with your customers. And before I dive into the 4 different ways of growing your sales, I'd like to just think a little bit about the customer journey. Because when we talk about the 4 different ways of growing sales, it's related to whereabouts somebody is on their journey with you. So the customer journey starts with billions and billions of people in this world who are completely unaware of who you are. In the nicest possible way, the vast majority of people don't even know that your business exists. And then somehow, some way, through some kind of activity that you have done, you are able to make them aware of who you are. So now they go from being unaware to being aware. And if you're doing your job correctly, or they're in the market for exactly what it is that you're selling, then they will become interested. Once they have made that move where they actually give you their credit card in store or they enter their details onto your website online, then they are fundamentally marking themselves out from billions of other people in this world. And one of the key things I'd love for you to keep in mind as we're going through this episode is that nobody is as likely to buy from you as someone who's already bought from you. And that's going to be the key when it comes to talking about growing profitable sales. And then once they've bought from you once, you keep warming them up, and then ultimately they'll become a repeat purchaser. Eventually, the plan is they become one of your super fans. Now, Pat Flynn is an American marketing specialist who has a book, Super Fans. And there's this concept of what if you had 1,000 super fans? If you had 1,000 people who every time you released something, they were clamoring to buy it. What happens if you had 1,000 people who would tell all of their friends and family about your products, give them as gifts, leave you reviews, create user-generated content for you? What impact would that have on your business? So that's what we're really talking about here. When it comes to sales, it's easy to focus on that first initial purchase, but ultimately what we're trying to do here is we're trying to create super fans. And that's what I want you to think about as we're going through today's episode. So let's start with the first way of growing your sales then. And this is the one that most people spend most of their time on as sales driving activities. And that is getting more people to come. When I talk to people about their sales, they'll often say things like, I just need to get more eyeballs on the business. I need to grow my online presence. I need to grow my audience, and so on and so forth. What we're talking about here is the category of activities that moves somebody from being completely unaware of who you are to being aware of you. There are lots and lots of different ways that you can do this. And not only could each one of these methods for growing your audience or getting more people to come, not only could each one of these methods fill an individual podcast episode, there are probably thousands of podcast shows themselves devoted to these methods. We're talking about things like social media marketing. We're talking about things like PR and press coverage, paid advertising, SEO and content marketing, collaborations with other brands, and so on and so forth, or taking part in large-scale consumer events or trade events. You can also say things like wholesale is part of this category of getting more customers, getting more eyes onto your business. As I said, there are so many different ways to do this, and I don't want to go into a huge amount of depth in today's episode because, as I said, each one of these categories is enormous meaty topics that you could focus on, as I said, focus an entire podcast show just on these topics. But what I want you to think about is a couple of things. First off, we're on only X number of ways to X type of episode today. But here's something that I want you to consider. There are 3 ways of growing your audience. That's a phrase that I heard, and I absolutely love the way they categorize it. You can buy your audience, you can build your audience, or you can borrow your audience. So in other words, buying it, that's everything to do with paid advertising or influencer work. You can build it, that's everything to do with brand awareness, building it through your organic content, for example, building it through your community, and you can borrow it. So that is basically collaborating with other people and getting in front of their audience. And for me personally, the one I get most excited about is when people really lean into borrowing the audience. And that is, in other words, lots of collaborations with other businesses that are complementary but non-competitive. So for example, you are an organic baby skincare brand and you might collaborate with an organic baby clothing range because you know that their audience is your audience and vice versa, but you're not competing with each other. And I love this approach because it speaks to all of the great strengths of small businesses. It's all about community. It's all about the most engaged part of your audience will start following them and vice versa. And it's all about real, genuine connection. One question that you can always ask yourself repeatedly every single day of your business life and beyond is who already has a relationship with the people that I want to build a relationship with? And if you keep asking yourself that question, then you can quickly come up with some ideas for some great collaborations. As I said, this whole idea about getting more people to come, that's what really a lot of people think about when they think about growing their sales. They think about their social media, they think about PR, they think about paid advertising and so on and so forth. However, as much as this is really important, and of course, as much as fresh eyes are the lifeblood of a business, this is actually also a very expensive and or time-consuming way to try and grow. And a great analogy I heard about this type of method is it's like you create a great party, you put a lot of effort into making this the best party ever, and then you spend the whole evening standing outside the party saying to people, please come on in, trying to get more people into the party, and then never actually coming inside yourself and speaking to the people who are there. And that to me is a great analogy for how you can get so focused on trying to bring new people in, you miss the other opportunities. So let's think about the other opportunities. So yes, getting more people to come, that's the first way of growing your sales and the one that most people think about when they think about sales growth. The second way to grow your sales is get more people to buy when they do come. Because as we all know, getting people to see your business does not mean that they are going to immediately buy. In fact, the vast majority of people who see your business will walk away without having purchased anything. So on an online perspective, conversion rates of 2% are fairly typical. In other words, if 100 people visit your site, only 2 will purchase. And similarly, in a physical space, if somebody walks into your physical space, now the stat I've always heard is 10% of people will buy. But personally, I find with a lot of small boutiques, it might be higher, maybe 30% or so. That's really important to understand what that number is, how many people are buying when they do come and see you, but then also putting the time and effort in to improve that. So if you want a really great podcast episode about driving your web conversion, then check out episode number 257, where we had Pip from Web Design and Stuff talking to us about how to improve your online conversion. But just as a general side note, I wanted to really highlight this method as a way of growing your sales, a real tangible way of growing your sales, because people just don't tend to think of it. They think, okay, yes, all right, I need to work on my conversion. It's kind of one of those things that's on every business owner's to-do list, while they simultaneously are really focused on driving more traffic to their website or to their shop. However, If you're driving traffic to somewhere that isn't converting very well, then you won't be getting great results. In fact, you'll be pouring water into a leaky bucket. So you definitely want to work on your conversion. And I also just want to highlight that let's say you manage to eke up your conversion rate from 2% to 3%, which is a 50% increase. That in itself will equate to a 50% increase in your sales, because same number of people coming in, but 50% more of them are buying, and therefore you're going to get 50% more sales. So that is a huge potential there. And people often overlook conversion rate as something that they probably should work on, whereas in fact it should be one of the things that you're most focused on. And I definitely recommend that you spend some time each month looking at your conversion rate and coming up with ways of improving it. If you're in store, can you get a clicker so that you really get a sense of your proper footfall, or some kind of footfall counter, even if it's just a manual clicker, so you can start checking what your conversion rates are, what's standard for you, and trying things to improve it. In the store, then there's lots of things you can do to improve conversion, such as the layouts. Do people have the information they need to make the purchase? Are things there that they actually want to buy? So that's part of conversion, is just what are you offering, and is it what your customer wants right now? And definitely good old-fashioned customer service can go a long way with conversion as well, because if you interact with somebody, you've got more chance of finding out what they're really after and then offering them something fantastic. That is the second thing that I want you to think about, is getting more people to buy when they do come, because again, that can have a really profound impact on your product business. And especially for an e-commerce business, it's extremely easy for you to track, whereas in bricks and mortar, it's perhaps a little bit trickier to do. But it's well worth making the effort so you can start to understand what's normal for you and then start to improve it. And that is the key. Because also hand in hand, if you start improving the amount of traffic coming and improving the conversion rate, you can see quickly how the different ways of growing your sales can compound one on top of the other. The third way to get people to grow your sales is to get each customer to spend more when they do come. Now, I personally think that getting each customer to spend more every time they come is the biggest missed opportunity for small businesses. When I moved from the corporate world into the small business world, one of the things that I noticed the most was just how little focus people had on their average transaction value. That is quite common for me to ask people what their average transaction value is, and they don't actually know. I wanted to just take a moment to really highlight why average transaction value is so important. If you have Shopify, it's super easy to find. It's there on your dashboard. It's also known as basket size. But if you don't have access to that, the way you calculate your average transaction value is you quite simply take the amount of sales that you've taken over a certain time period and divide it by the number of transactions. I like to look at this on a monthly basis, track it month on month to make sure that you are making positive improvements. For me, this is one of those areas that small businesses, I think, miss because they either don't really grasp the impact of incremental improvement, which I'll touch on in a minute. A lot of people focus in on the fact, oh, well, my customer, they don't really have the budget, or they're trying to be conscious of people's spending and they don't recognize that sometimes people actually want to spend more, especially if they're buying something special or some gift for a loved one or a big gift that people have clubbed together to buy. Often you can go into small businesses and find that there isn't really anything in that higher price point. The average transaction value overall for e-commerce in the UK in general is around £75. Most people I work with, their average transaction value is anywhere from £25 to £40. That's probably the most common. Obviously, if you're a higher price point, you're selling jewellery or fashion, then it may well be above the 100. But there are lots of people who are selling gifting, lifestyle, homewares, and their average transaction value is low comparison to the industry average. And I think that a lot of small businesses don't optimize for average transaction value, and I think it's a really big opportunity. What I really love about average transaction value as a way of growing your sales is that it's not about manipulation. It's not about trying to talk people into buying things that they don't need. What it's about is win-win situations. So for example, if you take a shoe company if you've been into a physical shoe shop, they will have shoes at the front, and then at the back, there will be a shoe care section. And this creates a win-win, because let's say that you have bought a new pair of suede shoes and you've splashed out on them and you want them to keep looking their best, but you've never owned suede shoes before. The fact that they've got the perfect product in the back that they recommend for use with their shoes to protect it from rain, to spray on, it's not going to mark the suede. Like, that's a good thing for you as a consumer. That's helpful. It's also helpful to the retailer because they've just bumped up their average transaction value slightly. And so it's these kinds of win-win situations that I really love with average transaction value. Another example is you think about any kind of toiletry company such as The Body Shop or Lush or Neal's Yard Organics or anything like that. Around Christmas time, when you walk into those shops, they are absolutely packed floor to ceiling with gift boxes. And there's lots of different gift boxes, lots of different price points. But the thing that brings them all together is that it's a super easy purchase. You walk in, you pick up the gift box, you take it to the till, you purchase it, you've got everything that you need for the person, it's already wrapped, all you have to do is give them the gift. So it's a win for you as the customer because life is super easy at a very poor time of year. And it's a win for the retailer because you better believe that the average transaction value that is in these boxes is higher than it would otherwise be. So they've got you to spend a little bit more extra, but they've made your life much easier. Average transaction value also has a similar impact to the conversion rate. So for example, let's say on average you persuaded people to spend 50% more per transaction, then your sales totally would grow by 50%. Now you combine that with improving your conversion rate as well, and before you know it, you have got some real significant sales increases because people are converting more and they're spending more. And again, you combine that with more people coming, then you can see how you start to build a real sales growth engine. But even if you did nothing else other than focus on your average transaction value, let's say you managed to increase your average transaction value by 10%, that would be 10% more sales for you overall with no change to your conversion rate and no change to your marketing. So that's really powerful stuff. And I would say, look at it once a month, think about what you can do, think about, is there tech that could help you? If you're a Shopify user, there are loads and loads of plugins to help you create bundles, to help you have extra add-ons at checkout or even post-checkout so it doesn't interfere with the buying flow. If you're in store, then think about what are on your till points, for example. What are those quick, easy pickups that could add a little bit extra? And this is the kind of thing that big businesses, they try and eke it up by £1 or 10% or 5%. Because they know that just adding £1 onto every transaction across multiple stores, across multiple months is going to make a huge, huge difference. And so they do things like map out religiously what is going to be on the tills, what's going to be at the checkout points. So they've got a really clear plan to help maximize their average transaction value. The other thing I love about average transaction value as well is that, again, good old-fashioned customer service can really help with this. It can really help with making suggestions that are really useful for the customer. They're going to really help them get the most out of your products, but it's also going to help drive your average transaction value. If your sales feel like a guessing game, one week flying, the next completely flat, I've got something for you. It's called the Calm and Consistent Sales Starter, and it gives you 3 simple, repeatable sales moves to build real momentum, even when you're busy, burnt out, or off Instagram. Grab it for free at resilientretailclub.com/sales. That's resilientretailclub.com/sales. And then the fourth and final way to grow your sales, then we've had get more people to come, get more people to buy when they do come, get people to spend more every time they come. And then the fourth one is get people to come back more often. And this goes back to the idea of nobody's more likely to buy from you than someone who's already bought from you. You want to make sure that you love and cherish your customers and help move them from customers to repeat customers and then from repeat customers to super fans. This is the warmest segment of your audience. This is the people who love you, who trust you, and these are the people that you really want to pay some serious attention to. These are the people in the party you want to be talking to instead of always focusing on getting more people to come through the door. And how do you do this? There's lots of different ways, But at the heart of it, it's about how do you treat your VIPs, so the people who've already purchased from you and the repeat purchasers, how do you treat them in a way that is better than somebody who has never heard you before? So for example, when I worked in corporate retail, one of my jobs was to go through all of our planned marketing campaigns and to really highlight what it was that we were going to do that was extra for our best customers. It was sometimes as simple as saying, right, we're having a sale, so they get an extra day before anyone else to shop the sale. They get an extra 10% off at the end of the sale. It's a new season preview, so they get to shop that first before anyone else gets full access to all of the sizes. Perhaps it was an in-store event for our very best customers to give them a special opportunity to try things on and to just say thank you. And I think that that's really the crucial part here, is it's how do you say thank you to these people? How do you really make them feel special and appreciated and encouraging them to come back? Email systems like Klaviyo are brilliant for that because you can tag people depending on how many times they purchased from you, and you can help create a really great experience for them. Loyalty schemes equally, something that can really help you reward your best customers. Definitely look after those best customers and make sure that you get them to come back and buy more often. So there you have it. We have got our 4 ways of growing your sales, getting more people to come, the one that most people focus on but is the most expensive and difficult to do. Getting more people to buy when they do come, which is making sure that you've done everything you can to improve your conversion rate. Getting people to spend more when they come, which is everything to do with your average transaction value, great customer service, suggestive selling. In other words, you might also like this. Thinking about ways that you can pair products together, thinking about ways that you can make it easier for people, think about ways you can have bundles as well, just to really make things easy, but then also have those extra add-ons which can over time compound to make some really big differences to your sales. And then finally, getting people to come back, which is all about treating them really well. And so you'll see the big theme, especially 2, 3, and 4, a lot of it's about great customer service, being there for your customers, answering their questions, being just a genuinely great business to work with. And of course, having great product that really is a testament to your business, that's also going to help a lot. So lots to work your way through here. And I would love to say as well, if you want more help with growing your sales, I have a brand new freebie. You can head over to resilientretailclub.com/sales and get my calm and consistent sales starter. See you next week.